Good enough. Well, I'll call the meeting of the Davenport Housing Commission together for Monday, June 26, 2023. First do attendance. Leslie?
Here.
Gary? Here. Joyce? Here. And Matt, I'm here. And as we said, Yolanda is not going to be with us today. So, but we do have a quorum, so that's the important thing. Our first order of business is to look at the minutes for the May meeting. And we'll ask if anyone has any questions, additions, corrections, whatever. And if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
I make a motion to accept the meeting agenda minutes for May.
Second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for the month of May. A lot of alliteration there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Here none, those pass. Second are our financial reports for May. And I know Joyce emailed out that she had some questions that I'll admit, I know Malia sent something. I didn't have a time to do more than saw that you sent it. So I didn't have time to read them, so.
So Commissioner Weising, when I run the, there's typically in the middle of the month, accounting makes an adjustment for insurance and salaries. And because of the timing of the VMS report and when the Housing Commission meeting is, I ran the report before the 15th, so it did not reflect the adjusted amount.
Okay, I have a question. What is a VMS report?
Voucher management system. That is the HUD server that we report our voucher information through every month on our financials. I apologize. I'm so used to using these acronyms, I forget that other people don't use them.
The other question I had on it is you said that usually these adjustments are made after the 15th.
When I talked to the finance department, they said on or around the 15th.
Okay, usually our meetings are after the 15th.
So when I'm working on the VMS report, I'm usually running those reports beforehand so that I can be able to provide you with this information. So she couldn't give me an exact date of when they make those adjustments, but I'm going to try to run those reports a little bit later to try to get more accurate information.
So you're kind of using maybe an estimate of what they're going to be then, or?
Because she said it's on or around the 15th, it may be a little after the 15th, it may be a little bit before the 15th, which just happens to be around the time that I complete the VMS report. And because our Housing Commission meetings are usually the third Monday, it usually falls all around that same time period. So what I'm going to do next month is try to run it as close as I can to when I submit the VMS information so that I can make sure that it's as accurate as possible.
Okay, so this had nothing to do with the end of June being the end of the fiscal year, because that'll pretty much be next month's.
Correct. Yeah, this had nothing to do with that.
Okay, let's see if I can get this. When you have reports, you have the month before your year to date, and then you have the month you're working on for those expenditures. Whether you are running a report on a certain day or a certain week or whatever week of the month you're doing it, if there are any expenditures, you add those to the previous month year to date, and that gives you your current year to date.
Okay. Are we talking about voucher expenditures, or are we talking about administrative expenses?
Oh, okay, I was specifically talking about, well, anything, basically. I mean,
Okay.
just any report. You have your year-to-date, you add these monthly expenses, and that gives you your current year-to-date.
So with the voucher expense, I don't want to make this too complicated, but with voucher, we can pay for any month at any time. So when I'm running checks every week. Running one big check run at the beginning of the month. So those will vary from week to week. When it comes to the expenditures for employee insurance and benefits, that's more finance. So I don't have any control over, I'm just learning how they run, how they apply and how they make adjustments, the funding. So the two run very differently.
Okay, all right, so more or less my question is then, I should probably talk to someone with financing then.
If you have questions regarding the insurance and
The salaries and the insurance.
yes, those are numbers I report from finance.
Okay, I mean, I'm not a brain surgeon or anything else, but when you have a year-to-date figure and you have no expenses, then how can that year-to-date be less than the month before? That's what they're doing. And the message that you gave here, the ending of here, that for public housing for year-to-date, you gave the $18,298, which the figure that you originally emailed to us was $20,599, which would have been the month before. So the new revised figures are correct. That means the figures we were given for the month before are incorrect, which means the figures for that month, the month before, are incorrect because they have all equaled out. So something is not adding up.
So the adjustment for last month was after the 15th. So I pulled my report before the adjustment had been made. So when that adjustment was made, they deducted that. That's why there's a decrease for this month, right? So in that case, that decrease, because that decrease occurred after that adjustment was made, which was before I ran or after I ran the report, and that's why it wasn't reflected. But if there's any specific questions about employee insurance, those are the numbers that I received from finance, the retirement, insurance, employee salaries.
If I might just intervene quick, if okay? I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this a few years too. The governmental financial accounting system is a smidge screwy, so I think kind of to your point, Commissioner Miller, it may make sense to have someone who's in our finance department come to one of your upcoming meetings. I don't know if they're available in July, and just sort of talk through the ins and outs of why things get, bounced around sometimes with it. I don't know that Malia and I have the answers for you because all we're doing with this report ostensibly is reflecting what's in the finance system. That's what we're trying to do. And if we're getting junk in, then junk is going to come out, And so if it looks you're doing the right thing by asking questions. We encourage that. That's what we're here to try to provide some answers for you. I can just tell you, I don't think anything untoward's going on. I think sometimes what we understand from finance is they've had to go back and bill things that they didn't code correctly. That happens. And they'll go back 4 months and they'll be like, oh, shoot, yeah, that shouldn't have been under that category. So that got coded wrong. We're just going to fix that before the end of the year audit. I'm not saying they're doing anything untoward either, but I think that's what you see sometimes is, wow, we didn't even spend that much. And now all of a sudden, now it's a lesser amount. What happened? Well, they transferred money out of an account, probably is what they did, and moved it into the right account. So it's not a great answer for you, and it probably doesn't give you any confidence in what's going on. But I know every year we do very well with our budgeting system, and so I think we have a really good accounting team. I think they just are flying by the seat during the year, and they true up things as the year goes on, and then make sure that the year closes the way it should. For us, the main thing for us has always been just to make sure we really don't pay as much attention to our budget figures. HUD actually requires Malia and her team to pay more attention to rent balances and those things. And some of that is even reflected here for you. The VMS report and everything is almost like a completely different system than the city accounting system. So it's just a long way of saying, why don't we get someone from our finance team in? And as Malia was, I think, starting to do, we're actually going to see if we can get you some information. Maybe it's not in the next few months, but if we can get you some information for your monthly reports that sort of tie in with actual performance rather than just what you're seeing on the month-to-month from the city finances. I mean, so staff is what staff is. They're going to code it one way one month, and if they need to back that out, they're going to do that. It's not very useful for you to track that because it doesn't maybe make sense, you know, but maybe the VMS with where vouchers are coming in and which ones are porting out of the system. I think those performance measures, if I'm in your shoes, kind of is more intuitive. It's like, oh, okay, so we've got more people coming on the program this month than we did last year at this time. That's useful info. You know, that sort of stuff is, I think, maybe where we'd like to head. But anyway, long answer. I'll get off soapbox.
Why is July a bad month for finance? It's the start of a new year.
Right, that's part of the problem. And they sort of are in, when they get to about this point in the fiscal year, they're in 3 fiscal years because they're closing out the year that's ending here in June. They've just started a new fiscal year in July, and then, I forget, maybe it's only 2 this time of year. They talk about, though, their projections for, I know it is, they start their budget projections in July and August for next year's budget. So I don't know. We'll just ask them. We'll just see if we can get maybe Basha or somebody to come to your next meeting and give you a little bit of a primer on what they go through and what the numbers look like. And I'll suggest maybe Malia, we might be able to see if they can go back over the last year or so and give you kind of a month by month. Wow, why was that a weird year? Why was that a weird month? You know, maybe we can get a little bit of that for you, if that makes sense.
I understand the difference in regards to the vouchers, people in and out and things change like this. What I am basically concerned about, we have public housing and housing choice voucher sheets. Are there a different number of employees for each one of those then? Do we know how many on each one?
We have myself and 3 other staff, full-time staff, that would be billed under housing choice voucher. But as Bruce said, if they're going back and applying money to work that was done for public housing, that might reflect the difference. I don't know because I don't work in those numbers, and we'd have to ask our finance department for more information on that.
Do we still just have quite a few number of people in finance inputting figures into these reports then? Or is it just, I mean, we have these people and I give it to one person and they input it? We don't know, do we? That's finance.
I don't know if I'm understanding your question correctly, but most of it is electronic now, so there's not as much hand entering as you might think, you know, in recent years. But the challenge often becomes what we found, like with HUD will reimburse us, like for public housing, sometimes only once or twice a year. And granted, we're out of public housing now, so I mean, that has stopped. But basically, when we were operating public housing, we might get a check in May that was for 8 months worth of administrative fees dating back to the previous August. And then you got to try to figure out, how did that float in, right? And so that's part of why I'm saying it's not quite like a normal organization where you can see, hey, we wrote postage checks out and we had this many payouts for rent and we paid this many salaries. And so it should be clear, Bruce. It should be. It'd be nice if it was, but trying to code that, and then finance staff doesn't always know. They know what we paid out, maybe for staff, but we can't always bill it that way. So sometimes they will float and pay out of general fund staff costs if you need them, not just for our department, but in general. And then a grant will come in a year after the fact, and you'll try to write the books for all those general fund expenses you had from months and months before, right? So it's that's why I just want to be clear. I don't know that you're going to get just a super, ironclad answer to it, but no, they're not individually 5 people inputting things, into the system every month. It doesn't quite work that way.
I'm at the point right now on questions, I'm not even sure how to word them, because I just don't feel right about it. There shouldn't be that many changes from month to month. There's this figure, you sent this figure in your original email, and then I had a question about it, and all of a sudden it's been changed, and it goes back to something else. What would have happened if I hadn't asked? It would have just stayed the same?
To a certain extent, Commissioner Miller, you can trust that our finance staff knows a lot more about this than we do. So we're putting out on the 18th, 19th, 20th of the month, what we see in the system. Here you go, commissioners. And you're asking questions about it to us, and we're saying, well, I don't know, that's what was in the system. So if you're, on the flip side, if your fear is there's a bajillion people that review our financial books every year, and HUD as well, we're not having any findings on these issues. So trust that it's going to get trued up. It's just the nature of grant accounting. And you maybe one of 12 months it finally looks right. And I think the other 11 months, it's like all higgledy-piggledy because the grant funds didn't come in and they're not coding it to maybe the right department, but when they know, they'll fix it later. So it's not a great answer for you, and I realize you want to do the right thing as a commissioner. We value that, but let's just bring in our financial staff, and maybe they can help talk it through it. Maybe they can tell us, I don't know why you're reporting on all this. In fact, Bosch has mentioned that. She's like, I don't know that you should be reporting on this information because it's not going to give you any useful information. Maybe you should only report on these things. So that's why I'm saying I think maybe we need to overhaul this whole page, and then maybe you'd have a little bit more clarity going forward. But it might take us a few months to get there, so.
Does the voucher money come in helter-skelter like the other money used to, or is that a more regular input?
That's a more regular deposit. I usually get notice the month before when that funding should come in, and I will forward it to our finance department, and it's deposited in our account. So I usually know the month before in the event that I need to ask for more funding, like I've had to do recently. So that helps us to prepare better for the next month.
The city has enough in its reserves for you to cover that until the check comes,
Well,
or it's
To
somewhere.
yeah, to not be too specific. So HUD's funding is what we consider what's called a restricted net position. So that funding has to be exclusively for housing assistance payments and utility payments. The city cannot contribute to that because it's HUD funding, right? For auditing reasons, for obvious reasons, right? And then we have unrestricted funding. But with regards to the restricted funding, so that amount, we take what we receive each month, and then we deduct what we spend or expect to spend, and therefore I can know whether I need to ask for more funding.
Funding from HUD?
Correct.
Okay.
I do know a little bit more about that financing part. I apologize. I'm trying, I'm learning, but it's a lot. So.
Okay. Well, I don't know if anybody feels comfortable in passing this, or if you want to hold off a month until we can get some greater, at least I think Joyce would prefer to do that.
Yes.
So someone has to put it in the form of a motion, so. Whatever your
I
will
make a
is.
motion that we hold off on the financial reports until we can get more information from finance.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to put the,
Table it.
to table the month of May's report until we can get some further clarification on things. All those in favor of tabling that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll table that. I guess our third is the occupancy report. Does anybody have any questions, corrections, or comments on these? And if not, I'll ask for a motion.
I'm getting a different number. On the one bedrooms, I'm getting a difference of 4. Currently, on the 2 bedrooms, I'm getting a difference of 7. Right. And then on the 3 bedrooms, I'm getting -6. So if I'm correct, 11 minus 6 is 5, but in the totals, I have 688 and 694, which when I subtract, give me 6. Unless my math is off.
I might intervene. I don't know if you've, you guys probably get sick of me coming to meetings. I keep talking, don't I? Sorry. Malia, I don't know either too. It looks like maybe the top row maybe should have been 689 instead of 688. So maybe it was just a math.
That's what I would get.
Yeah. So maybe previous month was 689, current month is 694, so they went up by 5 or usage, which is good. That's a good change. But yeah, good catch on that, I think. I mean, we'll double check that number
Okay.
too.
I'll double check that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you want to table that also, or
I'd like to.
is it the will of, okay.
I make a motion, we table the utilization report for May until the June meeting, until we get new numbers
Second.
July meeting.
for July. Pardon me, sorry.
No, that's fine. Actually, it took me a second to figure it out. I said, wait, what's today? Okay, it's been moved to table the utilization report until we get some further clarification. All in favor of tabling this, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We'll table that also. So now we're on to any consideration items here. Does anyone have anything for that? Malia, did you have anything for?
Nope, I don't have anything else to add. I'm sorry, I missed who seconded the motion for the,
Carrie did.
I'm sorry, thank you.
You're doing work over there too. At one time, we used to have another staffer come down and scribe things, so. Yeah. Okay, well, it looks like the third Monday in July is the 17th. That looks right. Joyce, you got a hard calendar. That's probably a better one. I don't always trust electronics. Oh, good. Got some. So. Do you have anything else to mention or?
The 17th?
17th.
Okay.
That's the third Monday. Okay, I noticed we have a guest on our audience today. Did you have something? Board? Okay.
Just a friend of mine, I wanted to see how things work.
Oh, okay.
I take it that everyone spoke to Bruce in regards to some of our questions that we had going on?
Yes,
Yes.
So no one else had any questions or anything like that? We're pretty much okay with all those?
yeah. The only question I had is, my commissionship is coming up and ending in July, and I will not be continuing because there's been a change in my work where my hours will be in the afternoon, where I start just before 3:30, so I won't be available to come to the meetings.
Oh, are you on the next, this coming
I
cycle?
don't know whether I'm supposed
I
to
thought
be
it
here the
was
next
just you
meeting or
one.
not.
We'll check, we can
Okay.
check on that. And maybe the more important, I mean, thank you for your
Yeah.
Oh.
assistance and service. And do you like cake? I mean,
Oh.
these are important questions. Thank you, though.
Oh.
That's awesome. And
You're
we'll email
Well,
you
I
out.
just, I couldn't pass up, I'm gonna be crossing the kids at All Saints. And they get out at 3:30, so I know I won't finish till after 4. So it'll just interfere with this and,
I did have some other questions that went through my mind after I talked to Bruce and that. Is someone that is on a voucher has a problem and the landlord is not taking care of it? Do they come to your office then, or how do they work that to kind of get the complaint going further?
We can tag team this one. So it depends is the scientific answer because in some case, I mean, without knowing more info, and I know this is the situation, I mean, it's human, right? So it's always different. Sometimes it's a problem maybe with payment or if the landlord is saying that they didn't pay rent and it's contingent on us and they said they didn't get a payment from us, usually the landlord reaches out to us. But if that's the issue, definitely we're in the lead on that. We do what's called housing quality standards, HQS inspections. So they can reach out to us, but all rental units in Davenport are also subject to rental code inspection, which is not done by our office. So it sort of depends, right? You know, it depends on if it's an issue with the unit that the landlord is not addressing. They often will call us first because they know us often more than they know a rental inspector because sometimes they're communicating with us on a monthly basis in some cases, right? So it's not uncommon for our staff to get those questions and then we'll do the triage to try to figure out, is it really an HQS thing? Is it a city rental code? What's the timing? Blah, 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 you know? And sometimes we can reach out to the landlord and see where they're at and that can resolve it before, you know, and sometimes the tenants are afraid of bringing issues up to the landlord. And so, and sometimes they call the the city council member, the mayor about it, and then they'll pass it on to usually us. but sometimes they go directly to the rental office instead of us. So it comes in lots of different ways, and we just sort of triage and depend, but you can certainly send them our way.
Has there ever been a time where a landlord has been taken off the list of being able to rent to Section 8 or anything like that because of problems?
Yeah, we do have a list. We have a few property management companies and private landlords that we won't work with, that we keep that internal. Obviously, because our program requirements may be different than someone who's in the market looking for, and the community looking for. So we keep that internally. So yes, that they are.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, well, if nobody has anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.